Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
And we are live. Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I am Kristen Kitty Cat Johnson today.
Kitty Cat. It is that season, isn't it?
It is. I have a funny thing, though.
Go right ahead.
I was in the bathroom trying to spray my hair with, what was it? Glitter. And I came out looking like a freaking fairy. It was all following me. It's all over my face. It's all over everything. So mind me not to do that again.
Oh, yes. A glitter body spray.
Yeah, it's actually
it's hairspray.
It's hairspray. And
it went
ended
to
up
the body.
Body and your towel. I'm sorry, hanging up.
Oh, you're going to need a towel later.
All right.
And like I was saying, it is the season. So happy Halloween, if that's what you celebrate. Happy Samhain, salmon, as we like to call it here on the show. Happy salmon.
Happy salmon.
I've killed that joke enough times.
Yeah.
But, I hope you're enjoying your holiday. This is our holiday show, and we love this time of year, of course.
Absolutely. I wish it was like this time of year. Well, you do too. Every day.
That's right. It is like our favorite holiday. So this is pretty good. Actually, I got to clarify that point. Favorite holiday. I'm going to go with the day after, Day of the Dead.
Yes.
It's really actually important to us, and we like to remember those that have passed before us, our ancestry, and as well just as people in general, and we really are respectful of that. If you know our show, you know this stuff.
You know what? Yeah,
it is kind of our involvement in paranormal aspects, in magical aspects. So with that said, we have an amazing show.
Good Lord, yes.
Today, and you're really, really psyched for our guests today. And I say guests, one of them may not be joining us. I'm not sure. He's working on getting on, and that is occultist Ken Allen. A lot of you guys know from being on the show previously, and a very good friend of mine is our other guest, and I'm so psyched to have her on.
Yes, we've been waiting for a long
time and trying to put this together, and just the timing came together, and we're going to be live with this. Her name is Sorceress Cagliastro. She is a blood sorceress, a necromancer, mogul in the hands of 9, a world-renowned blood sorceress, and she is the creator of the science of sorcery, the Iron Ring, working worldwide for many decades with clients specializing in the release of legal issues, sexual sorcery, necromancy, and let me just say this out front: necromancy, talking to the dead. You guys that are just you're doing paranormal stuff, and you're working with the spirit boxes, which we love, and all that stuff. That is necromancy, and it's on my shirt.
That's right.
I'm sorry. You're talking to the discarnate. You're talking to the dead. You're trying to get them to respond. You're working with maybe a Ouija board, the very controversial Ouija board, and maybe we can talk about that stuff. But that is necromancy. Aside of
it's a form of it. Yes.
Bring the dead back, which would be corporal necromancy, which our guest knows a thing or two about. Anyways, that is what she does. She is actualizing the individual's strength, focus, and power, highlighting the development and reconnection of the strength in men. And is how our bio is currently reading. Her name again is Sorceress Cagliastro. So let's bring her right on. Good evening, Sorceress.
Good evening.
Good evening to both of you. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting. We haven't talked in a long time, Chris.
It has been a while. And for those who don't know, I did study under you, and I've taken a lot of your classes. I have a big stack of books, some of which I'll show through the show, that are well worn, because you are the real deal, and things work. Your readings and practices are extremely legit in a field that is full of illegitimacy. I have always known that your stuff was on. Readings you gave me years ago came to fruition much later. Chris and I have talked about these things, some of which kind of personal, but
Very.
it was spot on. It was like, wow, there it is. It's not faking anyway. You are the real deal. So
Thank
welcome
you.
to Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Yes, and thank you, for being here. My goodness.
We appreciate it. Lots of people out there already commenting, and I'll bring up a few of those comments real quick.
Great.
Just to
Great.
Hi, kids. She says.
No. Hello, Barbara, Linda, Joanne.
People I know out here.
Happy Halloween,
Douglas.
Linda.
What's
Hi,
going on,
Doug.
Doug.
I'm getting you.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you for joining us, and feel free to add your questions, comments. We will try to get to them as we work through the show.
Nothing's off the table.
Nothing is off the table, and that's what I
Nope.
like. This is a no holds barred
Nope.
thing. You have always been a straight shooter, and talking to you, you're again the real deal. You don't hold back. You tell people like it is, so you don't have to pretty it up and
Nope.
that
Just
sort of thing.
go for it.
So
That's the only gear I have.
Right.
Excellent. Well, you have a new book out. I
do.
know your website is revamped. I see Darren Allen out there, who I know.
Hi, Darren.
What's going on, Darren? How are you? Let's talk about where you got started and bring us up to speed for those.
Well, it's interesting. Today I posted something about necromancy because, to me, it's always a season of necromancy. But in this more common season of necromancy, I posted something today because, like you were saying, there's a lot of people who are doing the work, but there's also a lot of people who are sort of living off the dead in a way I find uncomfortable. I've been in service to the dead my entire life. I was a autopsy tech, a trade embalmer. I did reconstruction work on skulls for missing people. I've been on missing people teams. I've been in service to the dead for pretty much 4 decades before I made this my full-time work. And I feel so clear that I've earned it and that I know it and that I understand it. And there are so many people out there who are just, throwing a book up somewhere saying, I talk to the dead now. But I've proven this work. I've had hundreds and hundreds of clients who've come to me to talk to their foregone disincarnate, their relatives that they've looked forward to talking to again. And I love this work. It's just the most delicious and wonderful thing that a person can do is just to serve all the humans around them, even the ones that most people aren't seeing anymore. It's that kind of thing.
Life is precious.
Yeah.
There is value there, and we often waste a lot of time, and maybe the dead are sort of a reminder of that.
Yeah, they are. They remind me about how much time they feel they have, which is interesting. It's as if it goes on forever, and they crave a relationship with someone whose blood is still pumping. That's what they do. They crave that sort of sentimentality, and that, to me, if you ask me what my link is, I recall the importance of that sentimentality at all times. And if you can hear them and you can see them, then you, in my opinion, really should involve yourself in that in some way. But if you can't, you really should get off the pot. I feel pretty strongly about that.
Well,
Yeah.
everything takes a little bit of work, right? So
Yeah.
I know we do a lot of paranormal stuff, and we go on
Right.
investigations and do those sort of things.
Right. But
Which
you do it with dignity. You always do it with dignity.
Exactly. And respect.
Total
Yes.
Always. Yeah.
a lot of people look at that, as like a different thing than, say, sorcery or magic, but there are so many parallels. And even with alien abduction, which we'll get into later, that, if you're doing one, you're kind of doing it all, and I don't think a lot of people really see the big picture of that, which was the point of, saying if you're working with a spirit box, you're trying to get it like a, electronic voice phenomenon on your recorder. You are communicating with the deceased. You're trying to talk to the incarnate souls.
All that is totally legit. I'm clear on that. I mean, I know the work that you do, and I have great respect for people who have respect for the dead. It's the people who don't that unnerve me. But let's just leave them alone because they don't deserve our airtime.
It gets beat up a lot, and I think it's been clear on our show where we stand with that.
Yeah.
Don't yell at dead people and that kind of
No.
Yeah, don't yell at dead people. Don't do baking. Don't do baking shows about them. You know, this kind of thing.
for sure. You know,
Yeah.
and it's necromancy, which is only one portion of what you actually do.
Yeah, it
So-
is. It's really only one facet, sure. I'm a blood sorceress, which means I understand the power of my own blood and I know how to use it, which means I understand the power of life force and I know how to use it. And that is really what blood sorcery is. It's not a slasher film. It's not a situation where you're throwing your blood on everything. What it is understanding that every bit of your blood has your entire story in it. And if I make a call to you, I can't tell you my entire story in a second, but my blood can. And so when it's on something or when I utilize it in an anointing, what happens is I've made a complete statement about what my requirements are, where I stood before this moment, where I'm standing in this moment. And that's why blood sorcery works. If you know how to use it, it's actually simpler than it sounds. But what's not so simple is aligning in full content your thoughts, ideas, and intentions into your work, because that's really necessary to validate the interaction between your blood and whatever it is you're using it to produce.
Yeah, so we're talking about something like a lot of people use the word vibration to talk about what you're trying to say right now, like aligning your vibration. If you that is your thing,
Sure.
it's only a word, right?
Right.
You're basically setting your intentions and opening yourself up psychically to the connections.
Right. We've been told what we can't have for so many centuries that the first step in learning to do sorcery is to forget your doctrine. That's necessary. You know, when people say to me, how can you live like this? How do you make a living at this? How do you, and I say, well, because this is what I do. It's not about all those other things. It's about, this is what I do. So therefore I do it, and it produces in my life what's necessary so I can keep doing it. That's really how it works. It's simpler. It's a simpler, sorry, I don't know how to shut that off, more straightforward way to do things than it sounds like. Vibration, I hear that word, energy. I don't care what the words are, but and I never do. So when people say, oh, I do it this way, I do it that way. And I say, let's leave the language out for a minute. And let's talk about the sensation. Let's talk about, you're using blood sorcery or using any of the other pillars in my work or whatever's in your own work. What are your intentions? Because I have this theory, if you don't mind me saying, this part of how I got here. I've always accepted that there are thoughts, ideas, and intentions. And thoughts are when you just start to feel something. You say, you know what, I'm tired of being here. I'd like to go on a vacation. And then you get ideas about where you desire to go. And then the first effort you make by a ticket or whatever you're going to do is your intention. And sorcery works in those three ways as well. It has to go through those paths. And when you're in thoughts, you're excited. When you're in intentions, you've got it. But when you're in ideas is when you allow the energy around you to turn it on or off, and you get a lot of no's. And it's in that moment that I teach my students where you have to let go of the no's and the doctrine. Because when you start to reason with it, it doesn't make sense, because we've been told that we have to live a life very different than the life we desire to live. And not everyone wants to live the life I want or anybody else, that's the way it is. But we can live the life we desire to live. It's totally available.
Yeah, I would agree. I know, and it's like we're kind of designed to do that, but we're told by society not to.
Yeah.
To follow this sort of these rules. Okay, you got to go get this 9-to-5 job. You got to do this, and you got to have the family. You got to do all these things. It's all very Matrix-like.
Yes.
And that is the thing I've learned, and we've learned since we've gotten older, that there is this sort of thing that happens with societies, and it's not relegated to the United States. It's kind of worldwide. Where there is a small portion that controls the rest. And I'm not talking about QAnon stuff. And if I hear another person talk about Luciferian in the wrong way, I'm just going to slap them silly.
What did you call it?
Luciferian?
Luciferian.
Yeah. Okay. I have lunch with Lucifer, and then they come back to us on that.
Yeah, and let us know. Exactly.
So what that real energy feels like.
Yeah.
It's different.
It's different, and you fall into these roles. And you think, wow, these things aren't possible. But as we've seen with the phenomenon, that anything is possible.
Well, anything is possible. It's also probable if you take sentiment and doctrine out of the way. These things get in the way of what is logically next. I've started doing a lot of work with chaos. And I'm not talking about chaos magic the way other people do it. That's a separate thing. I respect that, but that's not what I'm doing. I just wrote a book called Chaos Graffiti Sigils. And the sigils are literally done in large format chaos of graffiti that I've done. They're not like any of the sigils that I've ever done. And in this book, I suggest that you use bad behavior tantrums and unpredictable actions in your life and in the work so that you can break yourself out of the story you've been told about what you're allowed to have, because it's all about pleasure. And in my work, pleasure means a lot of things. People say pleasure, they think, oh, it's sexual pleasure. That's one thing. But being well is pleasure. Having friends is pleasure.
Now, when you
All
say
the things in your life. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, do you mean like like emotions? Take your emotions out and do that, like rage?
Yeah. Well,
it's because that's chaos.
I suggest fits and tantrums in the book as often as possible. And because we've forgotten that we have rage. People talk about rage all the time, but real rage is when you don't have what is innate to you to have. So if you allow yourself tantrums, you allow yourself fits, you allow yourself bad behavior, and bad behavior means whatever you think it is, then you get away from the doctrine and the sentimentality that has held you in a place you don't desire to be. Because if you're reading my books, you want more. That's the way I feel about it. Once you buy one of my books, you're saying to yourself, I desire more than I have.
Right. And there's a misconception there, right? So people think often a person who would title themselves as a sorcerer, a magician, anybody on that kind of path, the magical path, is trying to hurt their neighbor, and this goes back to things like, 1600s witchcraft, where people would try to curse the cow next door because they would try to get the milk, say in Scottish witchcraft or whatever it is.
Yes.
They would be like, their spells were about like, I'm going to get the neighbor's milk and that kind of thing. But it's not necessarily. It's usually about self-improvement. And most people I've met on this path have been about improving themselves, trying to fix some aspect of their behavior, their life, or maybe they want more money, they want a better job, different things. These are the things where, I've interacted with it personally. And I think that most people do. It's not so nefarious.
There's a general condemnation of seeking pleasure and selfishness. And without selfishness, we don't survive. That I've said it a million times, when the oxygen falls in an airplane and you have a child with you, you have to put it on yourself first, or you can't take care of the child. So selfishness and pleasure fall in that category for me. You don't enjoy life. If you're not well, if you're not having a good time, then what is the point of proceeding in that direction? It's exhausting. You want to blow your brains out. So pleasure is all there is. So if that's the baseline, and I need to do something to my neighbor, trust me, that person has done something to make themselves really inconvenient in my experience of the life that I'm living. People who do this work don't run through the streets seeking people to hit on. It doesn't work that way.
Right. And it kind of goes back to that matrix thing I mentioned, right? We want to kind of break that matrix, realize that maybe you and it's okay to be selfish, want to break some of those boundaries that have been set by society in front of you. Sometimes religion, sometimes politics, or whatever it is.
Yeah. There's always something willing to tell you the rules. All you have to do is get up, open your eyes, and there's 10 options for who's going to tell you how to do it, whatever it is, or how you have to live. And, I have people say all the time, they have a 9 to 5 and all that. And that's beautiful if that's what you want. I'm the last person in the world to say, oh, don't do that, go do this. If what you're doing is serving you in a really extraordinary way, and not just an okay way, not a getting by way, but in an extraordinary way, then continue doing it. People are afraid of me. There's a lot of people who are very much afraid of me all the time. And I think about that. And they're afraid of me for one reason, and one reason only, is because the work I do works. And it's not that they're afraid that I'm going to randomly do something to someone, because I never do. You've known me for years, Chris. That is not my way. I don't have the time I have so many better things to do.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many more things you can do with your time than
Oh,
or
of
more
course.
precious than trying to screw up someone's life or something like
Right.
that. But
No,
that
yeah.
I always loved the way you define protection. And when you talk about protection magic, you aren't fucking around.
No.
No.
No, I'm not. There's a couple things about protection that's interesting. Someone says to me, I need protection. And I say, what's living in your house? And they ask me what that means. And I say, well, if you hear that there's a lion loose in the neighborhood and you go in your house and you close the doors, how do you know it didn't get in through the window and it's not in where you are now? So when we deal with protection, we're really dealing with observation. We're really dealing with putting excessive space between yourself and whatever you perceive to be as a predator. It's not a dome over your world. It's not, it's not the kind of work that I do. It's getting in to the sort of almost micro level of what's going on in your world. And we look at it and take it apart. And then I'll use divination on top of that to say, well, I'm seeing this thing that you might not have thought is part of your problem or part of your inconvenience. And that's sort of my path to protection. But fear is an interesting thing, Chris. My definition of fear. People say to me they're afraid, and I say, well, fear, and whether they're afraid of working in this work, because people come to me and they want to study, they're desperate, and then they see it's working and they get scared and they leave, which is interesting to me. But fear is just inconvenience in a moment and then not knowing what to do next. If somebody comes at you aggressively, you're inconvenienced. And people don't realize the power of the word inconvenience. You're
That's
inconvenienced.
what to do. That's
What?
really
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
crux of that fear.
Right. Inconvenience. And then what do I do now? So when we take words like inconvenience, when we take words like doctrine, we take words like the rules, this kind of thing. These are words we sort of spit out, but they're the most powerful around us because they're controlling our movement.
Right.
And affect controlling the life, right?
Right.
Of that person and
Yeah.
how they don't protect themselves. I mean, you have this kind of no holds barred, to use that phrase again, way of dealing with somebody who would be attacking you in some way or really creating this inconvenience in your life. Where a person, exactly, doesn't know what to do next. They're in fear. And you approach it in a much different way. A lot of people go with this kind of and I don't mean to put anybody down when I say this sort of white light, happy, shiny, everything good approach. Well, that is doing nothing to the person who really has ill intent, right?
Well, that white light did not create the problem, so therefore it's not part of the solution. It's just straightforward like that. What's coming at you is coming at you with a malintent. And I've known a lot of white lighters. They hate me. It's fine. At least they have something to talk about. That's how I feel about it. But when someone is coming at you with any kind of malfeasance, malintent, this sort of thing, you can't respond to that by saying, let's have tea together. It doesn't work that way. You have to meet people where they are, even in their hostility towards you. So my work is very clear about that, about you must take the harder strike.
Yeah, exactly. And here's a comment out here. Looking great, Sorceress. Can you speak on timeline work?
Sure.
As used to do it. And that is something we've worked on.
Yeah.
I find fascinating and something that probably our audience, our core audience, is not familiar with.
Well, to talk about timeline work, there's some generalities, but then, if we talk about a specific situation that might be more useful, we can adjust the timeline. We can adjust where it is now. We can adjust what happened to us 10 years ago or 12 years ago when we were 7 or yesterday. It doesn't matter. We can take things out. We can change the weight of things in the timeline. The timeline is fluid. If you say to me, all right, Chris, you said to me, let's meet at 7 o'clock, right? So I would say, well, what is 7 o'clock if you deconstruct it? If you take the exact moment of 7 o'clock, it has endless components. It could be 100 billion parts of a second. We don't know what it is. So therefore, the fact that it's fluid makes it adjustable. It runs like water. You can take out the pieces you don't like. I've had people come to me after years of therapy, and I have nothing against all that stuff, but that's kind of where they flow from in this issue, who have done all kinds of work on themselves, and they have this trauma they can't get rid of. So we go into their timeline, and by their timeline, we use one of the pillars. We use the static practice, and which is one of the pillars in my work. And we get into their gallery and we look at the images that relate to that particular trauma, and we remove those images because nobody knows the full recall of something. If something happened to you when you were 10 or yesterday, it doesn't matter. We cannot recreate that with exactness. So therefore, we can't cure it with exactness, but we can cure it by removing it or making it way less.
Exactly. Right. So this thing that is traumatic to one person doesn't have to dog them forever. I mean, you can kind of remove it, and other people will start to see that it's removed.
Yes.
There is this sort of like, I don't know, connections between people that are here in the living, right? Between each other, and our memories, our reactions, you can look at it from a psychological standpoint, and your behaviors are kind of tied together, right? So if you're wearing this kind of thing on your sleeve that hurts, there are ways to get around it.
You know, for a year, I did experiments on this. For a year, I asked for as many people who want to contact me who have stuff on their legal record that's causing them not to be able to get jobs or this kind of thing. And what I did was worked with them to drop the importance of the thing that they were arrested for or caught for out of their timeline. I didn't even push them to drop the incident, but to drop the importance of the incident. Mm-hmm. And going forward over the next full year, for each person, I wanted to hear a year of data. All of a sudden, they were able to get jobs, and they were able to get mortgages, and they were able to do those things because it changes the fabric of their timeline so that they are now people who don't carry that. So even though somewhere there's still paperwork that says that, they weren't as barred from things as they had been before.
In some way, this reality seems shared. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Sure. Yeah. Going forward, those people, sure, they have a different sensation about them. That's true because they've done this work and they feel that. But it is a shared consciousness. It's a collective consciousness. It has to be.
Most definitely. We believe that.
Excellent. And now I know you do a lot of demon work. In fact, you were the first person to show me a demon. And I did see said demon, who it was very surprising. Is not.
I remember that.
In form of what people think demons are.
Yeah.
Tell our audience what is a demon and what is that work like?
The work is tremendously gratifying and perhaps my favorite part of my work. A demon is something that becomes an amalgam form around sorrow, around difficult or desperate situations. They are slowly compiled. If you go to a place in the world, which is a lot of places now, where people are really suffering and struggling and don't have what they require, you'll start to feel the sensation of despotism. Demons form through the chaos of that. They aren't entities in so much as they don't exist prior to this experience. They develop. And as they develop, they start to be attached to chaos. The more chaos they're around, the more they grow. The more they grow, and the word grow is even complicated because I'm talking about density of action, density of ability to be active.
Like energy?
Yeah, like their energy becomes cognitive in a way.
From our energy to theirs, right.
Yeah, they start to understand communication, this thing that exists. And as they develop, some of them eventually diffuse, but my understanding of them is that they all have a desire to become tangible in some way. Not to become human, because believe it or not, becoming human is not what everything on the planet desires, but they have an ongoing desire to become tangible, to be able to touch things, to be able to interact with things. And the more chaos they receive, the more capable they become. And some of them elevate to become attending demons, such as the ones that I have, and many of my students have found, and other people have found through reading my work. And they become desperately engaged in the need for more and more chaos. Now, chaos does not necessarily mean crisis. it means confusion. It means a problem to solve. So the more you interact with them, the more engaged they become in problem solving, and the more clear they become. They
And there
develop.
is a sort of heightened sense of emotional, which has currency. Emotion has currency.
Sure.
State, I think you used to use the example of like a plane crash. You have a
Yes.
bunch of people on a plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it's going down.
Yeah.
And what that heightened sense is, you know, you have all this emotion coming out
Yeah.
and going forth. And that almost becomes like an egregore. Linda said golems, but I think she's referring to like an egregore or something like that, as they say in chaos magic. If you follow that, it has a life of its own, and it's a topic we've approached. Like, you wonder about like people's I think road rage was the example, right?
Yeah.
We're talking to a guy, and like the stuff started to click with me, and I'm like, you know, people are always putting out these emotions, whether they don't have to be negative, they could be good emotions too, like a birth of a child or something like that. They got to end up someplace. Maybe it continues on, right? Like you feel it a lot of times. This is the translation from, say, the discarnate or one of these demons. You feel the emotions, therefore that's what you feel, the vibration, and you know what it means, and that's part of how that transaction occurs, right? You understand it that way, and you know, you wonder if it leaves your physical personality. Where does it go, right? Maybe it continues on, and it's the things that wrap up and become the demons we're talking about.
Physicists are starting to pick up on this finally, that thoughts, ideas, and intentions have weight. So if those things have weight, if I have a thought, especially a complex thought, an emotional thought, a reactive kind of thing, if I'm feeling that, like you're saying, Chris, it has to go somewhere. So it goes into wherever the somewhere is. Let's just say that for a minute. Something has to collect it. Everything sticks to something. The plane crash metaphor was really more than a metaphor, because given my history of work, I have had opportunities to go to plane crash sites. And when I worked for a medical examiner's office, I had the opportunity to do that twice. And you can see what's on the ground, the burn of things, what people would say is the horror of the situation. And you feel what's coming from that. You feel the fear people had before there was a crash. You feel what the ground has had to deal with. It's all chaos, and things come from that. We say, oh, you don't, it's all sort of in your mind. We don't feel things. But if somebody that you care about is crying, you're not just saying, oh, you're crying. You feel their intention. So we've sort of pocketed this agreement with ourselves that if someone's sad, we can feel it. If somebody's had a big win, we can feel it. But all the rest of the time, we can't. That's not possible.
Right.
That's right. That's right. And I know, like that, the M16 or M16 British Secret Service studies things like the effect of a person staying behind you that you're not aware of looking at you.
Yeah.
Right. So if they take that so seriously, what is the further effects of the very presence of things or emotions or whatever, what have you? Like we are so interconnected. Shamanism speaks of, talking to the spirit of the mountain, the wind, the water, the river.
Right.
And these are very real things, and we are connected to these things.
Of course. And then things develop, and if your eyes are wide open and you can really see things, you can see how this entity that was sort of a floating mist of sorrow is now an attending demon that you can have communication with. You've seen it. I've shown it to you. I have one attending demon who I send to people when they need assistance. My students are very familiar with her, and the floor is wet after she's there. So these are that's Sheik, and many of my students are familiar with her. And these are things that I sometimes want to just say to the whole world, you're missing all the good stuff. You're missing all that's available that's outside of the rules that you were told.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And Jen, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, but Jen says, I study sociology of war, including places where battles and great bloodshed has occurred. I frequently think about how these places have probably created demons.
I agree with her. The chaotic traumatization everything, the feelings, everything to go with
We
it.
can talk about that sometime, Jen, if you want to. You know how to find me.
Right. We mentioned Gettysburg earlier,
Yes.
right?
So
A
the first thing I
a
thought
site
of.
that a lot of people are familiar with in the paranormal, and there is an intense energy. I've seen more full-bodied apparition pictures come out of Gettysburg probably than anywhere.
And anywhere, yes.
You know,
I had a client I guess maybe 17 or 18 years ago. And I'd asked him if I could tell his story, and he said, sure, as long as I don't mention his name. And he was under all sorts of psychiatric treatment. He was in bad shape. The drugs that they were giving him were causing lethargy, and he was eventually in a wheelchair. And he called me for a reading. And as soon as I spoke to him, I said to him, do you live in Gettysburg? And he said, how did you know that? And I said, because I hear all that language from soldiers around you, and I have a sensation that's where it is. He lives literally right there. So after about a year of work, what he learned to do was have the necromancy experience, learn to do that. And he's now well off all the medications, and he doesn't think he's crazy anymore. His family thought he was hearing voices. And I said, well, you are. And so we got together a few times, and I listened and he listened, and we heard the same stories. And not until then did he understand that that was what was happening.
right? Right.
Awesome.
That is so
It's really
interesting.
good.
Darren says it's a whole other dimension that most people don't allow themselves to experience.
True story. True story. Well, there's a lot of that, though. You know, people people send me emails that say, I bought your books. Don't tell anyone. I have a question. I'm like, first of all, who am I going to tell? Okay. Although I'm telling you now, yes, but not with any names. And they say, you know, I keep it in my room. I keep it under my bed. One person told me they gutted a religious book and put it in there because they had to hide it. And I say, well, after you've read it, you really feel like you need to do that. So what happens is, you know, the work opens doors. But people are so afraid of everything. They're so afraid to break the patterns that they have. And demons really, really like jerk people around. They fuck with people's reality in a huge way. And sometimes just talking about it, they do.
Right. Well, that's really
We
interesting
understand.
because in the past, right, we look at things like Greek society, the ancient Greeks, they viewed demons as sort of messengers between themselves and a god.
Yes.
And maybe, how do you feel about that? Do you think they are? Do they exist as sort of a messenger, a carrier between maybe a greater energy or different energy than humans? Or are they their own energy, or maybe some combination of both things?
If you hired a messenger and it was a great messenger, and the messenger could bring information to somebody else, they would be both a great messenger and a great entity. So in that sense, I'll tell you, my attending demons do recon for me all the time. I mean, I'm constantly asking them to find things out that I need to know. Some of my divination work goes through them, where if I'm feeling a little stuck, I'll go through them, and they can go find out things and travel to do those kinds of things. I don't have any acceptance in my personal belief, if you want to call them that, of any kind of divinity or deity of any kind. This is my fact for me. I do accept that other people feel that way and that other people have those interactions, because I'm the last person to tell anyone what to think. So I don't know who my attending demons would go to, other than maybe other demons or other entities that could perhaps give me information that I wouldn't have ordinarily. There's a disincarnate that I speak to, and others have heard him speak and know that this is a fact, who I think was perhaps not straight ahead a human being who straight ahead died. I think there's a complexity there. My attending demons talk to him on a regular basis as well, and some of what he says to me is in other languages, and I can understand it through interpretation with my demons.
And when you say that interpretation, it's like you don't need to necessarily speak the language, right? You're just getting a sort of emotional input. You see the pictures. What is it like for you?
In this particular case, I hear the intent. That's the best way that I could put it. Although he does sometimes speak English, I can hear his intent when he doesn't. He speaks Russian. That's the other language that he speaks, which I don't speak. And one of my attending demons in particular, 7, because my attending demons are numbered 1 through 9, and then there are 4 others that have names. 7 seems to understand him in a way that the others don't. And 7 will say things to me, and then I'll see that disincarnate agree. But that disincarnate is so rich and in my life and in such a big way that I can actually smell him when he comes into the room, which is, I see them all the time. I see them right now. My life is full of them all the time. There's no privacy if this is a big part of your life. But some of them I get so close to, I can feel them touch me. I can feel that I can feel their intentions. But this one, I can actually smell his scent. He smells like soil.
And that's a thing, right? If people see that the paranormal, a deceased person and their perfume or something might permeate a room, and they feel like their presence is there. And that is part of it, right? If you're trying to communicate with a specific dead person, discarnate, whatever you want to call them, you might want to try to recreate the situation. Yes. That maybe some interaction you had that did have an emotional value to you. Maybe this is more for yourself than the other than the discarnate, right? I had this kind of experience working with you and trying to
we've done that together, you and I.
Yeah.
I have in one of my books, one of my earlier books, I think it's the Blood Sorcery Bible 1.5 and maybe the second one. I talk about setting the table for the dead if you've had a table that's set with them before, having the same dinner, creating that same memory, the same sense. They can smell things. I'm not sure they can taste things, but I'm sure they can smell things. That's just the data. That's what I've experienced. But I've set tables for people I've had dinner with that are gone, that have died, that are not so easy to bring through. And then there's a sexual component of that. If someone died who's your lover, that's easy. You can just create that in sort of a masturbation fantasy kind of situation with the disincarnate, and you will have them enter the room and perhaps enter the situation. It's very possible to do. I've done things like that, and you can do it with demons also.
Exactly, right. It's like that sexual draw is an energy in and of itself.
Exactly.
Just like anything else, like a love or a pain or anything. It's an emotion. So these seem to be the things that cross that barrier.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Linda says, I have some synchronicities in my life. Practically all the important men in my life have worked at funeral homes. My father, several boyfriends, my ex-husband. What do you see in that? What is her attraction to?
Well, the attraction can come from one direction or the other. Linda, it could either be that you're drawn to people who have that level of depth and that level of sort of an eternal experience, from people who have died to people who are living, and it becomes very blurred. I worked in funeral homes. I know how that is. And I was an autopsy tech for years. I understand that. The other side of that could be that there's somebody in your life who's disincarnate, who's helping you make those connections. It's very possible that could be happening. I don't know if you've thought about that. If you want, sometime send me an email and we'll look at it. Be happy to do it. And maybe I'll say names to you that make sense, and you'll say, oh yeah, maybe that's somebody who has that level of interest in my experience. Talking to the dead is beautiful. It's a wonderful life. It can be crowded at times, but it's a wonderful life. So if there's somebody working on your side who's disincarnate, then all the better.
We agree with you as well. Most definitely.
And I'm sorry. And speaking of that communication, I wanted to get this banner up, and I told you I was rushing before I got. So that is our website.
The website is entirely too long, but that's okay.
No, it's okay.
We all have it.
I want to say it out clearly because this will be a podcast, and some people only get this in audio. To reach Sorceress Cagliastro, you want to go to www.cagliastrotheironring.com.
Right. You can also, I have a general email. I use a Gmail because a lot of people can use it, and that seems simple. So it's sorceresscagliastro@gmail.com. If we've never met before, that's the way in. Just send me an email. I get hundreds of emails a week. So understand that it might take a little while. If it's urgent, you put it in subject line. What?
You don't think people should be scared?
No.
Some people will to go, oh, look at it, she got black hair and I'm scared.
She's
You know,
works
if
with demons. I mean, it's.
I know you personally, and I know you are not a person to.
Nope.
Not that you shouldn't be feared.
Which I was going to say earlier when you said that, I'm like, well, but
you're not going to sit there and just hack somebody for emailing you.
right.
Yeah, and I also, if I don't see the person that you want to talk to, I'll tell you that. I'm never, if you go to somebody who does necromancy and they 100% of the time can make contact with 100% of the people, there's a problem. Because some disincarnate don't want to be spoken to. I've had situations where someone comes to me and they want to talk to someone. I can hear the person say, I don't want to talk to them. I'm dead. I got away from them. That has happened a number of times. So if I can't see the person, if I can't hear the person, I'll be happy to tell you that. It doesn't happen that often, but there's no illusion here.
Now, one of the things we talk about in the show is the spirits that we do encounter, like in say haunted locations or within the Bridgewater Triangle.
Oh yeah,
bring that up in a moment.
Very familiar with that.
They tend to be like earthbound type spirits, right? They're not really, say, quote unquote, crossed over, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
Where they're at a distance and maybe can communicate with you, but are maybe here for some other reason. How does your work fall align with that? This idea of earth spirits, and they didn't really go to a quote unquote heaven, and it's just a word
in between.
I think they're all here, Chris. To be honest, I think they're all here. Some of them have more of a desire to communicate. Some of them don't. People become more of who they are when they die. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you're a person who is very, very happy in life, you'll be even happier in death because there's nothing to hold you down. And it works, if you're miserable in life, you'll be more miserable. You find more to complain about. Mm-hmm. That has been my experience. That's what the data has shown me. I keep very good data, and that's how it has been. I don't think there's a difference. The term earthbound spirit, I don't really have data to prove that they aren't all earthbound. They're all here. There isn't another place. I've been asking for 40 years, where are you? And they've been saying to me things like, here. I'm talking to you. There doesn't seem to be this second location. Children will tell me things like, where am I? I'm lost because I'm here and everyone doesn't see me. I have that experience a lot, but I have no data to suggest there's a second location.
That's really interesting because sometimes the communication does seem different from, I don't know, from say the haunted location or whatever, and maybe it is some sort of malevolent intent with that versus somebody who was maybe an ancestor who visits you and it's like a more joyous experience. But then again, they aren't really saying where are they, they're just one form of communication or another.
Well, a haunted place is a place where there has been a crisis level upsetment of some kind, and that can be your living room or it can be Danvers. It can be any of those places. And what happens is the same way a living human being gets trapped in a trauma, a disincarnate gets trapped in a trauma. And they live in they exist. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry. Like, are you speaking about, we'll label this so people can understand, like a residual energy? Just
more like a loop.
Like a loop.
Yeah. They have become defined by this trauma, so they stay in it.
It's terrible.
Yes, it's very bad.
Do you I hate to take you off the subject, but
no, go right ahead.
Do you ever try to cross these spirits?
Yeah, I don't use the term cross because I don't know where they'd go. But I have worked with individuals in a loop to try to remind them of other parts of their life. And that's how they break out of the loop. There was one person who lived in in New York where Bellevue used to be, the building that has the two round parts, right?
Yes.
She moved into the apartments that they made there. And I have people who did the construction in that place called me and said, we're finding small bottles of what we think is bone dust in the walls. And
boy.
and I went there and I worked on it with them. They gave me a lot of that stuff. I took it out for them. So there was a real sensation there that people were trying to maintain a connection
Hmm.
at the biological level, like putting things in the wall. They found a lot of probably stillborn babies in the walls. They found I don't know if that's public, but I don't care. No, nobody told me. I didn't find anything. So I never saw anything. So the disincarnate that are there are defined by the place. They become defined by their experience of being there. And in that experience, they get so stuck in the loop because the loop came with the experience came with a lot of rules, right?
Hmm.
So they live in the rule. They live in these kinds of repeated negativities, if you like that word.
Yes.
And it's so powerful they can't get out. And that's what causes what you think of as haunting. That could happen anywhere. And that apartment was so badly trapped in, I don't know if it was the location in it, because actually where it was right above where the medical facility was. And I helped her removed people from her apartment so she could live there.
Wow.
Yeah, see, and that really relates back to our earlier talk about, the matrix like reality that we live in now. If you're working that 9-to-5 job like I do, and I love my job, but it's a whole different subject. I'm haunting my work. I'm haunting my workplace, or I'm putting my energies there.
True.
But it makes me happy, and that's cool. But I sort of am putting my energies there, and when you have a loop, right, that's sort of discarnate or putting their energies there because they think that's the rules they got to follow.
Yeah, and that's why the new book talks about chaos and talks about having fifth and talks about breaking out of what you're stuck in. Because if you can do it now, you won't get stuck in that loop. It all relates. Everything relates.
Oh, one moment. I'm going to bring on
Yes.
Mr. Ken Allen, who's been waiting
Oh,
back.
good. This is exciting.
Oh,
yes, he's a great guy. And it's a good friend of our show. Let's bring him on right now. Hey there, Ken. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, babies? How y'all doing, sweetheart?
Hey, Ken.
Oh, shit, fire and hold the fucking presses. Sorceress Cagliastro, Cagliastro, Cagliastro. Sorry, little Lady Gaga, baby. How you doing, Cagliastro? Girl, you look good. God damn, honey. I'm a queer and you are fine.
Thank you.
Yes, honey.
Thank you. I'm glad you got here. Let's do some chatting.
I need to find out what kind of lipstick you wear. I need that shit in my life.
Hey,
Well, I can tell you, it's NYX and it's black liquid and it's Max. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah, it does help. That's the name of my cat, by the way. I have a Maine Coon and her name is NYX.
See that?
Naturally.
And I'm in my
Goddess
head.
of night, right?
There you go.
Exactly.
It's gonna be right there. Yep.
I'm sorry I'm
right.
late. I had a lot of shit come up, and when shit happens, you got to write a check, right, baby?
Gotta throw money at it, Ken. Gotta throw money at it.
Exactly.
Anne Marie says, "Hi, Ken."
And she says, things don't
baby.
change until you do. And that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, your mic's just a slightly bit hot, just to let you know.
Yeah. You're a little hot.
Little hot.
Little hot, baby.
Yeah.
Let me turn it down.
Don't let me start singing.
Well, I can't help that, honey.
We've been talking about sorcery. We're talking in depth and going into some pretty deep subjects. And I love this, as
We both do, yes.
both of you have made like a lifetime commitment to sorcery. On a personal level, and ourselves, we do stuff. I don't think we would call ourselves dabblers. I don't think that's the right word. I think everybody starts out as a dabbler.
Yes, I
But-
believe that too.
I don't know that we've made the level of commitment that the two of you have. And
I think you
love
have. You have.
talking about this stuff with our audience who really just doesn't understand,
Mhm.
what a demon might be, and I had this great experience with you, Sorceress.
Yes, that's where I was going with that.
Meeting a demon, and I actually got something on the back.
We have
Maybe I
stuff
should
here.
get that.
Yes.
That I was able to interact with.
Mhm.
It was like an attendant type demon, and even other people were. I believe Seraphine.
Yes, there is Sarah.
Hurley had worked
Yes.
with him as well, and he just made himself present. It was not what I thought. It was not. Well, I didn't expect it to be horns and
Hooves.
pitchforks and that
Right.
kind of stuff. But it just kind of looked like a regular guy. But he showed me right away, like, here's what my sigil looks like, here are the colors I like. And he had this particular attraction to fake gold.
Yeah.
Like the plasticky type gold, like for whatever reason, which makes no sense to me.
That's interesting because
he did.
Working, and I'll get into the demon thing in a little bit, but working with Loki, and we talked about the very first time I came on Bigfoot and the Bunny. We talked about me working with the entity Loki, whatever the fuck that energy is, Loki, and he liked yo-yos and right. Remember red yo-yos. That Fireball whiskey shit, whatever the fuck, I can't remember that Fireball whiskey shit. And he liked fake gold, specifically pyrite. Beautiful.
Exactly what Chris.
Right. So I bought this owl cup, right? And owls have all sorts of attachments and correspondences to different gods and goddesses, and I drawn, but it's mostly worn off. The sigil on the bottom, because I knew he'd like it, and I knew he could probably do some stuff for me, and he did.
Well, baby, they've done some stuff for me. For example, Pyamon. Ooh, honey. Woo, baby. When he manifested to me, he was a fine motherfucker. Okay. And I know that the reason he manifested that way to me is because I'm a homosexual, honey. He looked like he was between the ages of 35 and 40 years old. He was real pixelated at first. And then when he come together, it was only a split second. When he came together, that motherfucker was fine as spring wine poured by Bacchus himself, honey.
Well,
He
that is
came in the way you needed to see him, didn't he, Ken?
What's that, honey?
He came in the way you needed to see him.
Exactly, 100%. And a lot of people don't understand that. When I tell people, they think, oh, well, he didn't look like that to me, or blah, 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 blah. No, he looks like that. He looks the way he needs to look to the person, to the individual.
It's all very visceral, as you know.
Yes.
And we get what we get, and that's the way it is. I have this one disincarnate that I talked to, who I think was never a living human being, but that's another story. Happens to be Rasputin, and everyone tells me that that's crazy. It took me 5 years to get him to say one word to me. He'd stand around. It was very odd. But he's a visceral guy. He has no shyness at all. I mean, I've seen him, masturbating. So it's anything that's possible. They do what they want to do. And if you have experiences of a demon showing up to you as something hot and sexy that you will appreciate, then that means that they really want to talk to you, that they really want to get in your head and maybe further.
Absolutely. 100%. You said it, honey.
Yeah.
I can't believe how good you look, girl. You are just beautiful.
That's what I've been
I
saying.
can't get over this shit. That bitch done put a spell on me, y'all. I'm queer, and she trying to make me straight, honey.
I'm not trying to make you straight. I love queer men.
I'm just kidding, sweetheart.
I know
Nothing
that.
but respect, baby. Nothing but respect.
Yeah. You do what you love, and you throw a little anti-aging sorcery in there every single day of your life. And
Which I was just going to say, well,
yeah.
Anti-aging sorcery is a thing.
Exactly.
That you do, right?
He's going to have to join us.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, you look great too, man.
Of course.
Jesus.
Well, I always look great. What can I say? I'm for somebody that's 875 years old, I don't think I look too fucking bad.
You don't look a day over 700 years old.
Oh, this is great. I'm sure we're blowing minds right now. There are people.
There's a lot I would like to blow tonight.
Oh,
well, it's still early. It's still early, Ken. You got.
Anne Marie, is Doug still listening?
I can't help myself.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What'd you say, baby? Cagliastro.
I said, you call me from yours, I'll call you from mine. Okay.
Absolutely, honey.
Oh, this is fantastic. I
Yes,
knew you
thank
guys
you.
would hit it off. Just like
Oh yeah, 100%.
a couple of
100%.
people. We're going to have a fun conversation. We're not going to hold back at all. These are two people. Let's do this.
I don't know how.
Well, some people out there just joining, and we were talking about demons, Ken. And like we've talked a bit about that, as them being, messengers to other energies, as being their own energy. What has been your experience working with demons, and why would you do such a thing when Christianity says, "Oh my God, this is going to hurt you, and you're going to have the Amityville house"?
Oh, he said the C word.
Conjuring him.
Conjuring house.
Yeah. I don't even shit fire. As my grandmother would say, shit fire. God damn it! I don't even know where to begin with that question. I've been working with them for so long. I first started. I started getting into sorcery, witchcraft, whatever the fuck you want to call it, when I was 11 years old because of my mother. My mother was Sicilian. May the gods rest her soul. And there's some mafia ties, but hey, that's hearsay, right? And so she practiced Strega, and then her mother but they didn't call it Strega. They didn't say that. They just said handling things, handling business or whatever. Nobody fucked with these women, but I don't know. I started when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I think I started working with demons when I was like 17 years old. So for me, demons aren't what's depicted with regards to organized religion. They're actually ancient gods, ancient deities that's been demonized, if you will, by organized religion, Catholicism especially. I mean, look at all the demonologists out there. Every demonologist is a fucking Catholic, right, baby? Every demonologist is a Catholic. I mean, how can you call yourself a demonologist and you limit yourself to one religion? If you're a demonologist, you need to study demonology from all aspects, from Catholicism to Tibetan Buddhism, Hinduism, Sumerian, Babylonian, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
So, but my experience working with demons is no, they are not these absolute evil entities that are out to deflower virgins, drink blood, and eat shit by the moon.
Well, not to say they didn't drink blood.
What's
They
that?
may have. I mean, they may have drank blood.
We don't know. I
feel
mean,
like things like
Babylonians.
civilizations like the Aztecs or the Mayans.
Oh, good.
Oh, well, I know that is a figure of speech, but
sacrifice to the gods. But that is not really the reality of what today is when you're working with this energy. And I think energy is a good way to put it, as opposed to this entity that is going to ruin your life. Not that they're always gentle and kind.
But
would you both agree? Like, I mean, they might teach you.
I would agree. I would say that. Exactly.
I'm sorry, Kenda.
100%.
Yeah.
No,
No,
baby,
you're
right. Nothing is gentle and kind. I'm not gentle and kind, baby. I mean, I love my son. He's 5 years old, but I'm not always gentle and kind.
That's right.
No.
Even though he does have me wrapped around his finger. Do you have to let it linger?
do you have to let it linger? I know.
Sorry, I had to lie.
Don't start me getting into like
Hey, you wanted me to come on here. I'm sorry. I'm on.
It's fine.
Ken
I love
Allen.
it.
I'm just a crazy motherfucker.
Please be yourself.
Yes, everybody be themselves.
God forbid.
Of people and give a platform to something that maybe is outside their box, but maybe shouldn't be, right? I mean, people can look at this and go, "Oh, are these people crazy? Talking to demons," because they've been taught that that's a bad thing. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily historically a bad thing either, right? You can interchange the word demons with daemons and these sort of things. And trying to look at the science, the reality of it, and science of sorcery is something that I know Sorceress has put a lot of time into, right? Trying to like define these things, whether it's a directional sorcery, whether it's necromancy and these sort of things. Like what does the data show? In your experience, Ken, like you've gotten great things out of this. It has worked out for you, and it's not something to be afraid of, right?
Exactly. No. I mean, you said it, Chris. No, it's not. It's not anything to be afraid of. You're not going to go to this imaginary place called hell. Go ahead, honey.
Doesn't exist. We were talking before, Ken, about how many disincarnate I've spoken to, thousands and thousands, and I say to them, "Where are you? Where'd you go?" And they say I'm here. That's what they say. I'm here.
Exactly.
Here's where I am.
Exactly.
rest of it is, there's these little things that we get stuck on. The heaven and hell thing is a real bitch to break down, right? Because you can't tell people that doesn't exist. And the reason you can't tell them it doesn't exist is because they have a desire to be judged.
They have a desire to be judged. That says a lot right there, honey. That says a lot right there.
Yeah, that's why they need it. That's why they need it. How can you possibly live a decent life if there's not a punishment in the end? That's the bullshit. That's the problem. That's the doctrine. I always tell people the first thing you have to do is get rid of the fucking doctrine. It's ridiculous. This is
doctrine is dangerous. Doctrine is dangerous. And people don't want to hear the next thing I'm about to say. Faith is dangerous.
Horrible. It's horrible.
It's horrible. Doctrine is dangerous, and faith and even hope. I'll go. So fuck it. God damn it. I don't give a shit. Even hope is dangerous.
Absolutely. I always tell people if you use the word hope, wish, believe, and pray, you're fucked.
Yeah. Okay.
Because those are four lanes to you having no personal choice, no control, no pleasure, no delightful misbehaving. You can't do it if you live with those four words in your
boundaries, really.
Yeah, you're exactly correct with that.
Would you say there were boundaries? Like boxing
I'm gonna give you my phone number before we're done here, honey.
We know. Told you.
I'm gonna call you. You're gonna see what's gonna happen then.
You're damn right.
Great. One of the things that I'm working on a lot right now is, Chris mentioned it earlier, is working with men because men have been eviscerated. Men have been told they can't be men. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, it doesn't matter. Men have been fucked with so badly. I'm doing a lot of sorcery now, sexual sorcery, power sorcery, re-engagement sorcery, which if you're into that, which is sort of like when you're reaching back into the real animal inside. And men have to be helped. They have to be sorted out. They have to be given their fucking spears back. It's ridiculous. So a lot of the sorcery that I do, and I'm talking to men, and their first thing they're saying is, I really wish and I really hope, and I say, shh, stop talking. Yeah. And that is the only time I'll tell you what to do in this whole thing is stop fucking talking right now. Yeah. And we start talking about what are you really seeing? What are you really doing? What's the sorcery in your head? Where are you? Are you still in there? And this has been a really exciting period of time because I'm even getting more interaction with this incarnate man. It's very exciting, very important. This demonic energy, if you want to call it that, if you like that word, is very masculine. I think it is.
Let's talk about
that's very true.
Behind these demons, behind these gods, goddesses, when we talk about these things, there's a specific gender that has historically been rendered, right? In our literature, if we go back to, ancient literature, it's right there, what they are, what they look like, whether it's the statuary or just the way it's written. Do they actually have gender? And do you find that to be a real thing?
What do you think?
For me,
Ben? I know
okay. For me, it's always been every time. Okay, Paimon, a sexy motherfucker. All right, Orobos, with regards to the Lemegeton, a horse-headed motherfucker, but a sexy fucking young college boy. Okay, and I'm not no kind of pedophile or nothing, but a sexy college boy is of age, honey. A Cher knows what I'm talking about. Get that bitch on here.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, but yeah, for me, it's always been male. The bottom line is, I know what your question was. It's always been male. All the demons I've worked with, the infernal gods, whatever you want to call them, has always been male, except for Lilitu and Lilith.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the only one. Now, me and Lilith had a hard time connecting at first because she has a vagina. All right. I'm not a woman, but I'm queer as folk. Queer as fuck, honey. But we did make that connection because we both like the same thing. You know, Adam had it, Satan had it.
Yeah.
So let's go, honey. Male.
You know, when
male,
people say
male.
to me, when people say to me they want to summon Satan, they want to summon angels, I say, if you could bring that kind of energy into your life, you would turn to dust in like 42 seconds.
100%.
You cannot, you know, you talk to people like us who really do this work, and I'll tell you that try to summon a puppy. Start with that, because this stuff will bust you open. You don't even understand.
That's right.
Best ever. I gotta remember that.
Feel free
That's
to
awesome.
use that. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
sexual
fucking awesome.
energy is a component of a lot of this.
We're
It's just another
friends now,
energy.
Ken. You know this works.
Sexual energy is a big deal. You know, I'm not going to get into the various, you know, witchcraft, sorcerer, wizard, enchanter, sorcerer, sorceress, what the fuck ever. But sex magic is a big deal, and a lot of these, especially your witch babies, they're like, oh, well, I masturbated the other day on a paper towel, and I manifested a sigil, and what the fuck?
You know, if you take
Like,
nothing out
yes,
of the
it's true that it's true that autoerotica is a powerful thing. Autoerotica is a powerful thing. I mean, I'm not going to do it on a podcast. Well, I might, but I'm not going to sit here and jack my dick on a podcast and come on a paper towel. And, you know, I mean, I might do that shit. Who the fuck knows? It's me. But, you know, the art of coming is a powerful thing.
Yep.
And you can actually summon spirits with orgasm. Go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
I think we were separated at birth, honey. I talk about orgasm constantly in my work.
We were separated at birth.
Yeah, I think so. Because people go, oh no, we're going to talk about orgasm again, you know. But what other apex pleasure moment do you have with absolute attachment to all the energy inside and outside of you? That's the one. There it is. It's the most powerful thing that a physical human being can do in their body to make sure that they are the sorcery or whatever you want to call it. That's where it is. I talk to people all the time and I say, listen, are you getting laid? Are you fucking? Are you masturbating? Because if you're not, then we have a problem here about how to get in touch with your energy. I don't know what to do with you. So we have to talk about that. I say to people, go jerk off a couple of times and then we'll talk. And I don't even mean to be funny, but
no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, we're mammals, and mammals fuck, and that's what they do, and that's how you get more mammals.
And like you were saying earlier, pleasure, and that's
right, and it's how mammals have survived, like the great incidences of the Earth, where we had devastating things like meteors hitting the Earth and the atmosphere turning upside down, and you know, mammals survive because they like to fuck.
Just shifting and then
you know why the atmosphere turned upside down?
Oh God, I'm just scared.
Because the Pope was jacking. Yeah,
I'm sure he does.
That's a gig. That's a gig. Isn't that a gig, Ken? Isn't that a gig? Talk about a gig.
Yeah. Baby. I know, right?
That is a motherfucker of a gig.
Right?
Unbelievable. You don't even have to buy your own furniture. It's amazing.
Do you guys think, you know, that when I talk about these kind of like eradicating events of humanity, there have been several that, you know, are scientifically recorded that
they're theorized,
and you know, things went underground, whatever, came back. Do you think that some of the things we talk to, these demons, these goddesses, these gods, may be from a past civilization? Maybe when we talk about the giants, or things like the Nephilim and that book that people kick around called the Bible and all that stuff, you know, might be some kind of connection there. You know, what do you think?
Ken, you want to start this?
Of course there's a connection. Everything is connected.
Yeah.
You know, okay, so I used to practice what's called SEIDER, SEIDER. or Seidr. It's Norse. It's Norse.
Mhm.
And I practiced that. What I did, here's what I did. And then I'll get to some kind of fucking answer. I don't know if it's right or wrong. But I practiced this shit. I isolated myself, and I'm really considering doing this very close to the future, just because I need to. I have to do this every so often. I isolated myself. I didn't get on social media. I didn't interact with anybody except for my husband and my son for 7 fucking years. And I learned the art of sight. Seidr. Look it up, bitches. And I practiced this for 7 years, almost every point that I was goddamn obsessed with this shit. Obsessed with this shit. Seidr. And I traveled the world tree, Yggdrasil. All right. So I met this Jotun, this female Jotun. Beautiful bitch, but her vagina was the size of a fucking Buick. Okay. And so I know, right? Chuckle, but and this is simple as fuck. She basically told me that all things are connected all the time. That's easy shit. That's easy shit. That's nothing miraculous or Buddhist or fucking whatever. You know, all things are connected all the time. So yes, absolutely, Chris, 100%. I was on a podcast the other day, and we were talking about Samhain. You know, not pronounced Samhain, bitches. Samhain.
Salmon.
Yeah, exactly. And they were talking about, oh, what does this time of year? Why is this time of year so? Well, why is Yule so powerful? Why is the winter solstice so powerful? All these things are connected all the fucking time. I'm sorry, I know that's not a profound answer, but there you go, baby.
It's good. It's good.
It's
And that's a
excellent.
great point, because we do have this holiday, and I don't personally, and I don't think you do either, really look at the holidays other than just the date to kind of remember. And I like the idea of the Day of the Dead.
Right.
We like that because we respect the dead.
Exactly.
But aside of that, like the Halloween thing, salmon, well, okay, that's just our opinion. So other people, it's a powerful moment, and they do feel the veil is thinned, if you will. But I think it's really more about their intentions.
But Chris, what about collective consciousness? Because I think that's a huge part of it.
Yes.
You've heard me talk to my students about that, and I say it doesn't really matter what you accept as fact or not. There's a collective consciousness, just as a thought, an idea, and attention has weight. A collective consciousness has a lot of weight. Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. But the fact is that it is the one night of the year, if you want to think about Halloween, for everybody who's involved in it, where people get out of their shit and they decide that they can be something else. That is a very powerful collective consciousness for whatever reason that they do it. And in that moment, if you can get in that space and you can attach to that collective consciousness and utilize it like clay, you can make something out of it. And then you can say, well, tonight, 300 million other motherfuckers believe that you can see the dead. Well, why would I not choose this night to use it? Because in that moment, there is the only veil that's lifted, because the dead are here all the time. They're sitting right next to me.
Mhm.
The only veil that's lifted is the block that has been placed by doctrine, which tells you can't see them, which tells you they're not here, which tells you you're not allowed to talk to them, which tells you that they're bad, all that crap, all that nonsense. That's the veil that's lifted, is the understanding that it's okay tonight until the stroke of midnight.
Oh, I fucking love that. A collective consciousness decision on a holiday, or what fucking day we're going to do it, can make an influential reality.
Well, people can afford shit near Christmas. Why is that? Why is it that near Christmas people can suddenly afford to buy crap they couldn't afford to buy the rest of the year? Because
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same game. And there's no new year. I have to get on record here. There's no new year. Every day is the beginning of the new cycle of this planet. This is somebody's decision that on January 1st, we have to make decisions about what we're going to do going forward. Strike a 12 tonight in this time zone, it's a new year. That's the way it works. Every single day,
I agree.
the whole planet starts over. And the planet doesn't say
100%.
on January 1st, oh, you gotta switch over. Maybe the planet will go to the fucking gym. Who knows? But it'll be something that the planet's doing. It doesn't work that way. It's always me.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah, I agree with you too.
Reggie says he lost. That's right. It's like cyclical, but it's cyclical because we think about
you
it,
didn't.
right?
Yeah.
You know, if we're thinking about it, maybe it exists because we're putting some sort of energy into it.
Yeah.
And that was a thing, a hard lesson that we learned.
Oh
right?
man,
When we became obsessed with the sort of entity,
and it was chaos.
It was
there,
and it was chaotic as fuck.
It was fed.
But
we know that for a fact.
We knew as investigators that or researchers that we could talk to it, and the more we thought about it, the more it appeared. And it was one of those situations where, and I think this is probably common in Magick, but it threw us off because it seemed nefarious.
It was bad.
People put things in, they call to the demon, and then it shows up, and then they go, oh, what the fuck? And I'm scared.
Yeah, well,
right?
why'd you and feed it,
all that
dumbasses?
is true, and a lot of people do that, but I think in our case it was slightly different because we were kind of expecting something, but we were trying to understand what it was.
Right.
There was a rabbit hole with that. Right. And the more we thought about it, the more it became real, to the point of hallucinations, to a temporal possession.
That was not
all
a hallucination.
Kinds of things that were not cool. But keep in mind, we were not like calling on a specific entity with a certain intention. This was just something we stumbled upon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think there's a lot of things people fear. Maybe the two of you can expound on that.
Well, you know, I can't count how many times someone came to me to see a demon or to see the disincarnate. And the second they do, they freak out. They say things like, how did you make that happen? You know, well, it's my projector booth upstairs. What the fuck's wrong with you? How do you think I made it happen? You know, you came here, you paid money for me to do this, and I do this with my whole life. There's not a day job here. I do this with my whole life. Mm-hmm. So and I say to them, have the moment. I don't really like the word courage because it's weird, but you know, you say that to what I call people muggles outside, to use that Harry Potter word. I say, have the courage to just stay here. Just have the experience. Just see what occurs. And some can and some can't. But that's the nature of the thing, because that is, and I hate to be redundant, but that is the doctrine kicking you in the ass and saying, you're not supposed to be having this experience. So how could I be having this experience? I had a client 5 or 6 weeks ago who I said to him, I'm on the phone with him. I'm not seeing him, which is very helpful. I prefer not to see anyone. I don't want to read the facial expressions. I just want to know what I know. And I said to him, there is a broken ring on the floor of your bedroom. The person who left that is bad for you. And he said, hold on. And he went into his bedroom, and there was a broken ring on the floor. When you say things like that to people, you fuck up their agreements. And their agreements are that this doesn't happen, that you know, God, whatever the hell that is watching over you, and you know, now you're evil because you can see those things. I'm sure, Ken, you've had experiences like that.
100%. Yes, I have.
People judge the results based on their sensation of their agreements.
So you asked, it's kind of a little bit like Hellraiser, right? And Pinhead goes, you know, you summoned me, therefore I came, or something. You know, you put with the box, which is basically a haunted object story. And yeah, sure. You know, you have to be ready for that presence, because it is a little outside of people's you know, wheelhouse to have the experience with something that is another level of supernatural than, say, a deceased ancestor.
Well, people who watch this podcast and who buy my books and who call Ken when they need assistance, they know there's a fracture in their story. They know that the doctrine is weak. They know that what they've been told is possible is obviously something constructed to keep them away from something. Those people, they don't always know it consciously, but they know that there's something else that they're requiring. And it's even, because this is the way I see my work, it's really attached to pleasure in the long run. Because if they can get out a little bit, they can get out a lot. And that's why I'm using all of this. My new book talks about, like I said, have fits, throw tantrums, be a lunatic. do whatever you have to do to get to a place where you're allowing yourself to see the dead, to see demons, to have amazing orgasms, to do whatever it is you have to do, but misbehave because the doctrine has sealed you in a story that doesn't belong to you.
Yes. Bravo fucking oh, baby. Bravo.
Yeah, well put.
Very
And you're talking about belief systems and that kind of
Oh,
thing. Opening that up to like, hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can have this experience that was probably gifted to me anyways, but I've sat here and put myself in a box and can't do it.
I love what Ken said about how he started this thing in the Sicilians. I'm 100% Sicilian, and that's good and bad in some ways, I guess. But I had 2 dogs living in my bedroom when I was a very young child, 2 large black dogs. I will never forget this. I was 7 years old. I went to visit a friend's house, and she had 2 dogs and she was feeding them. And I came home and I said, why don't we ever feed our dogs? And this person who was not actually my mother, I call her my faux mother because it took me years to prove it, but she wasn't. She said to me, we don't have dogs. And talk about like a 10 on the pucker factor moment. And I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean we don't have dogs? And I had these 2 dogs living in my room. They evolved into 2 of my current attending demons. And they showed up in a form that I could accept as a child. And that's what happened. You get these little wonderful fractures. I love your story, Ken, about your experiences starting very young with this. You get these brilliant, wonderful, fantastic little fractures in the bullshit. And some people walk through the fractures and get more. Yep. That's what I did. That's what it sounds like you did, Ken. And that's what makes it so amazing. So you have to get people, when people come to you, you have to let them understand that they're going to be walking through their fractures. And that's how they get to see these amazing things that we can bring to them.
I love that. And, people use a lot of labels, right? So somebody might say, oh, it's my spirit guide, but it might be an attendant demon. It might be, this thing around you that is helping you guide your life in a better direction to help you along.
Well, they just visit you and you have no idea who they are and why they're there.
Oh, that's a whole.
Well, that's what I was saying the other day.
That's an evil AM band.
No, that's.
I had an experience one time. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but this couple, it was a young couple. They had an infant, and called upon me from a friend of a friend of a friend who knew me. And they were like, we're having this activity in our home, and the bassinet is rising up and down with the baby in the fucking thing. The toilets are flushing at night. The windows are opening and shutting at night. Books are flying up the shelf. Various other things. So I got I using my site or Sather, SEIDR again. I got into a altered state of consciousness. I met patron demons, Orobus, ORABAS or OROBAS. It depends. People spell it differently. Orobus. And so he's like, listen, this is not one of our folks. This is not a dead person. This is what they would consider a celestial entity, aka an archangel. So what the fuck? Yeah, exactly. And because the house that they lived in was a decommissioned Catholic church, and this entity was upset that it was no longer a Catholic church, so this entity was haunting this place more or less. So I worked with, long story short, I worked with the Orobus, and we banished this entity from this young couple's house. I mean, when I say they were young, she was like 18, he was like 21,
Poor children.
Very young. Yeah, basically kids. So
what?
So anyway, a demon banishing an angel. I don't think they're demons or angels, but take it how you want to take it.
No, I like this. I like this, Ken, because people say, "Oh, this is good, this is bad." they pigeonhole everything, and the humanity has this way of just pigeonholing fucking everything, man.
Yeah.
Like I want to like put everything in a box and call it a label, right?
Yeah,
and then just put it there, and it's not doesn't necessarily work that way.
Well, that's just a way to mitigate your own lack of requirement to see the bigger picture. That's all that is. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, we do it with people. We do it with types of people. You know, we say this about this culture and that's about this culture. And so why wouldn't people do that with demons and all this other stuff? If a person who has made choices in a lane in their life comes across my work, sometimes they flip out. They have to quit their job. They have to do everything differently. One of my students, well, two of my students have ripped their lives to shreds to do this work and are now in a place where all the people around them, all the bullshit around them that told them, no, you know, Jesus is going to be mad at you, whoever that guy is, and all this kind of stuff that goes on. They have ripped the shit out of their lives to be able to do this work and are now doing tremendous work, have gigs they love, like all the stuff that happens. You know how it is. You know, people don't move from the big city to little towns. They go the other way.
Right.
And the reason they do that is because they know there's more. That's how it works. So why wouldn't it work at the level of collective consciousness and personal consciousness and a desire to know? Look, everybody's seen a shadow in the corner, right, Ken? Don't you hear that all the time?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, I'm seeing stuff right in my eyes. Yeah, and I say, well, turn that way and look and talk to it and see what happens.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what you and I would do.
Right.
Yes,
right. This is exactly the advice I gave
and we're having a
many
good
years
time.
ago. Like
Yes.
when you were having a lot of activity in your house,
Mhm.
I said, well, talk to it. You
Yeah,
know,
like,
make friends with it. But, you know, you got to do that. Proceed with caution. I think we've learned this, you know, proceed with caution, but, you know, see what's there.
Well, it's better to know what's there because, you know, if it's going to set you on fire, you should be able to know that there's ways out. I think that's a useful piece of information.
It's back to the protection magic. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you got to know your enemy, right? To quote Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. We're vibing again.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Can I ask Ken a question? Ken,
Of course.
the infant.
I'm sorry,
that you
baby. I
said-
was looking at porn. Go ahead.
Okay. It's
I'm just
okay.
kidding.
Catch me in an hour, baby. We'll see what I'm doing.
Woo, honey. Let me pinch my nipple. Go ahead.
Right now, you know, I'm doing a lot of work and I'm doing creating a thing starting in February called the Knights of the Fuckery, which are men who want to study with me. Thank you.
Sorry.
I love it too. I've created these particular dolls. I don't know if you've seen my dolls at all, Ken, but I've created these dolls in this group that are just to bring through male energies, male demonic energies, male disincarnate, whatever you can grab that can come through this doll. And I'm going to be doing work for 12 months with this small group of men to get them through the fractures. It's very important. Oh, there it is. There's my site.
Yeah. I'm showing your website now. Again, Cagliastro, theironring.com. Your books are on here, but you have a variety of things on here, and your site has gotten pretty hot.
Yes, I must say.
Yeah, there's a picture of me. There's a picture of me breastfeeding one of the dolls on the site. And the reason I did that was because, you know, you can blow somebody's head off on TV, but dare you show a nipple? You know, it's just kind of madness. So I'm always pushing further and further. Yeah, I have them here. Here's one of those dolls.
Yep, she's got them on the screen.
Fucking beautiful. Fucking beautiful.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna talk later. We're gonna talk later, baby.
Yeah. Make sure you get my number, Ken.
Absolutely.
And they come with a shungite phallus, which you can then take off the doll and wear so that you can learn to take it with you. You know, I have pieces on my sites that are stones that are naturally been washed over by the ocean and now look like penises. And, you know, put stuff in your hands. Get it that there's that the doctrine and the rules and the shit you've been told have really collapsed your expansive pleasure. It's horrifying. So go.
And what I
go
like
touch-
about you is you have that tactile stuff. You know,
Yeah.
very
Oh, yeah.
tactile. Yeah.
Right.
You
The
have
magician side of me is coming out and saying, all right, you're showing a correspondence.
Exactly.
You're showing this thing, yeah, take it with you, feel it,
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you will have that energy to be able to go back to that term vibrational,
Frequency,
Yeah.
vibration together.
where you are. How are you going to get there if you can't have this? This thing
Exactly.
is sacred. And it's like, man, what is it about the shungite that you like?
Well, shungite is the only stone that has fullerenes in it, which is a space, an open molecule that is surrounded by a carbon cage. And that's why it absorbs EMF and all that sort of thing. But that's just like everything. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It does so much more. It can change your trajectory. It has an amazing potential to hold things. Look, in sorcery, we open voids, right? So you open a void so that you can give a space for good stuff to come in, the stuff you desire to come in.
Mhm.
And
We
all of us
purposely open voids. We purposely
right,
open
every single day.
portals. We create that shit. Exactly.
Exactly.
It will be filled.
Shungite is built that way. It has these spaces. It's also the only stone that has almost every element on the periodic table in it. So you're holding the planet when you hold shungite. So that's my fascination with it. That's why I become
That's
obsessed. I have
wonderful.
huge pieces of it on my wall.
No, I
That's-
love
it's
that.
so
great. It's
And
I'm
one
sorry?
of the things you say is that, if you create a void, it will be filled, right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
this has always proved to be true. Since
better
you pointed,
better you choose what fills it. If you make a hole in sand, the planet decides to fill it in. But if you
That's
make a
right.
hole and you're in charge of it, you can put what you desire in it.
This bitch is off the chain, baby. I love you, girl. God
We
damn.
knew it.
Loving you back.
She is
That's how
fucking
it works.
hot.
That's how it
It-
works.
Shungite is good for our audience as well to know. It's a
Yeah.
very good.
material. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did a
Love
hour and a half narration on it the other night, which I can send to you, Chris, and you can enjoy that and talk about that, about what
Yes,
it does
please.
and why it does these things. I'm not a crystal lady. I don't have rose quartz hearts in my life. It's just not what
Same
I am.
here. Same here.
Yeah. But I do have, like, if you look on the altar behind me, and maybe I'll take a picture of that and send it to you. There's things on there that are not beautiful that you don't see anywhere. Like I have a scepterine with Gerta in it, which is just an ugly dragon egg looking thing, but you can touch in there and you feel your organs sort of clearing out, because it's molecularly built to remove condensation and to remove stuff. That's what's useful. Visceral. I work with reindeer fur all the time now. This is a thing I'm doing. I have a
Is
whole
that what you have
bunch
on
of
your
reindeer.
wrist?
Yeah.
Reindeer fur? I was wondering that during
This is
before the
actually
show.
a tail. This is actually a tail. But right now in my studio, I have 30 reindeer pelts, and I love to feel
Nice.
them and the visceral sensation. They're incredible. It's incredible
They're
stuff.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. We're animals, and that's what we are. Some
Yes,
of us
we
are
are.
animals with different skills, right? You know what I'm saying? You have to be an animal. It's very important.
I mean, hell, even Anton LaVey, a lot of people think that Anton LaVey shit is outdated. Anton LaVey's philosophy is not outdated. The man was ahead of his time. Even today, he was ahead of his time. We are animals.
Yeah. I dressed as a kitty. So there you are.
You make that choice. You make the choice to gravitate towards animals that towards animals that remind you that you're an animal. It's very important. I have big dogs. I have really big, very temperamental dogs. And the reason I have those dogs is because I love that energy.
I used to raise wolves professionally.
Really?
Yeah, I had a license and everything. I used to
I
raise
just fell in love with you a little bit.
silverback
Yeah.
timber wolves. I'm sorry, what, baby?
I just fell in love with you a little bit. So
I did more than what I did. Had no idea you did that.
Yeah, I used to raise wolves, yeah, professionally. I had a license and everything. Because I got like 30 acres behind my house of solid wood, and that's where we had the kennels and stuff set up. And I did that for like 15 years. And then after, I lost so many of them, it just hurt my heart so much. I had to give it up.
Yeah, they live about 9 or 10 years, right?
Yeah. I had one that lived almost 14, and her name was Sage.
Yeah.
And that killed me. That was hard.
My dogs are bred from dingoes.
Mm.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only that, first of all, Ken,
Yes.
did you breed them with each other, or did you breed them with a shepherd or husky?
No, there was no hybrids. I did not do the hybridization thing. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, Jake and I, we want a wolf dog. We've been wanting one for
Yeah. If you had known me about 15 years ago, I could have gave you one. But we would breed them pure blood, and then we would release we would give them to the proper people, and they would release them in the various parks in the United States.
That would have been wild.
Yeah.
Sorceress. Also, I heard you had a craven, which is a crow raven. I want a raven.
Right. And it would scream murder.
It was
It would yell help all the time. I had her for a number of years, Ruth Roses. She was amazing. She would pick up the words to say that would make people uncomfortable. She yelled help all the time, which was not great. Neighbors would say things to me like, I hear someone yelling help in your house. I would say things like, do you hear it now? But these kinds of animals, they bring something out in you.
Yeah.
I know somebody who breeds wolf dogs. If you want me to connect you to her, I'll connect you to her. But it's a cautionary tale. I mean, my dogs are not for everyone. My dogs are bred from dingoes. And the thing about animals like that is, and I'm sure you know this, Christine, you must know this, they will be wolves and they will be dingoes. Mm-hmm. They will not be dogs. And you have to make very particular agreements. Mm-hmm. I always say all the time, I live with two animals that at any moment could decide to kill me.
Exactly.
And,
yes.
They don't, because we have agreements. But that's how it is. But that's how it is.
Wild.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how it is with everything. It's always like that. Everything
We're
is
all
wild.
We're all wild. Exactly.
In our own way, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that I experienced for many years with regards to wolves is once they claim you as part of their pack, that's it, baby. There's no getting out of it. There's no getting out of that shit. You are part of their pack. A lot of these wolves, they would live behind my house, but they would also come and go as they pleased inside my home, inside my house.
Yeah. Because you had agreements.
I did.
That's the way it worked. Powerful people have agreements. It's very different than rules. Agreements are a whole other thing.
Exactly.
I have agreements with my attending demons.
I was just fixing to say it's the same way with spirits. You have agreements.
Yeah.
You don't have rules. You don't have boundaries.
You saw me get up and I was looking for something, and it was a piece of work, I guess, and I still work with. Mm-hmm. It's an iron star with magnets on it, and it's more or less covered with blood, which I may not, should show
blood
you
magic.
anyways.
Anyway.
But magnets are also a facet of your teachings, right, Sorceress?
Oh yes, we use magnets a lot.
And why is that? And people don't really understand magnetism anyways, and a lot of things like electricity.
Yeah.
Magnetism is what we are all experiencing all the time, and we live complex lives. We get negative, we get depression, we get all kinds of things because we don't absorb the potential of magnetism. It's something that pulls to another thing and makes the connection. Our blood, the iron in our blood, and when you put blood on iron, because we've talked about that, Chris, it's an important thing to do. You're acknowledging more of who you are, your human experience, and the iron and the blood. Magnets will work with your blood magnetically if you can get them to do it. If you are willing to spend the amount of time. I burn out computers because my hands are so magnetized. You do that too? Do you have that problem?
I have that problem with tablets.
Yeah.
Magnetize the energy and phones and
freeze and
lights.
It's very bad. It's very bad. I, I've got an iPhone and an Android. I have them both because mattering on the day, I can have problems manipulating them, and they're both so different. They have such a different magnetism to them.
Yes.
I've burnt out. My friends and my students will say, "Well, what's it been 3 months? And another $1,500 phone is gone," and that's the way it works. Because magnetism, understanding the polarities of the Earth, especially when it flips, which is very exciting. I'm sure Ken's worked with flipped polarities, especially if you've worked with wolves, because they just like watch it happen. It's amazing. I encourage people to work with magnets. There's also a cerebral content to that. If you're seeing magnets pull towards each other, if you're seeing them pull away, the consciousness of that and working with that is very important. People don't understand the power of the yes and the no, of the connecting and the not connecting. And when you give them something to put in their hands that they can work with, then they start to understand that. A lot of people come to me because they feel sort of tread on. They feel like, they've been yes people their whole life. And one of the very first things I do is say, let me cut you and let me show you your blood. You can't do it. And I sit with them and I cut them and they're like, oh. And I said, see, now that same experience, if it was accidental, would be acceptable to you.
Right. But
So
I'm gonna tell you. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm taking them away from that and making them purposeful. And magnets do that as well. What were you saying, Ken? I'm sorry.
I was going to say that I would say a month after I met my husband. Okay. We did, he was a little iffy about doing this shit, but I kind of, anyway, it fucking happened. We were making love and I pulled out the razor blade.
Yeah.
And the rubbing alcohol. And I'm like, let's go somewhere you ain't never fucking been, baby. Right. He was hot and horny and ready to, he didn't give a fuck at this point, He only had one thing on his mind. So bingo, exactly. Hit that fucking target, bitch. And so I pulled the razor blade out and I'm like, let's have some blood sex magic. Yeah. Long story short, we did. And when it was over and done, after the sweating and the, finally, once we caught our breath and smoked a joint or whatever the fuck, put on HBO, he was like, this is the most intense shit I've ever experienced in my life. It was his words, this was so spiritual. So spiritual.
To another level.
Right.
And he was raised Pentecostal.
The reality of blood, it is like a tiny death, and there's a connection that we all have because we all have it, right?
Morte.
If we share it, we cut it. Sorceress, I believe you wrote your first book in blood.
Yeah, I did. The first Blood Sorcery Bible was written by dipping. I put a little bit of ink in a thing of my blood, and I wrote the whole thing by hand. Beautiful. I still have it. And I photographed it, and then I sent it to people who needed to have it. That's how it worked. And it seemed so normal to me, so relaxed. Like, if I really want to tell this story, I have to tell it in truth. And I'm telling it in truth by writing it in my blood. That was exactly what happened. When you bleed, you are a little bit closer to death. Ask yourself why, when you drive past a car accident or you see somebody injured, you have to stop and stare. The reason is you're not looking at their blood, you're looking at their mortality.
That's right.
And when you cut yourself, when you do it intentionally, you're making a statement.
Oh, we lost her.
Darn it.
Shit.
Right, we'll wait for her to rejoin. Yeah. But yes, blood is an important aspect of sorcery. I mean, I'm pretty sure, Ken, that you've used blood in some of the rituals you just explained.
Oh, I've used it a lot. I not just for what I said earlier, but yeah, I've used a lot. I will take small slivers of cardboard and I will poke my finger or my thumb, whatever, and I will saturate that cardboard in my own blood and I will let it dry. And then when I go to do whatever I'm going to do with said entity, spirit, demon, whatever, I will burn that shit in said entity, demon's candle as an offering, that blood. And That shit burns good, baby. Let it
Wow.
dry on the cardboard.
I
There
like
she
that.
is.
There it is. It is. Now, do you guys think, what the two of you think about when you're cutting yourself, if you're hurting yourself in some way, you're creating some sort of pain, is that intensifying the intention?
For me, it is, yes. Whenever, for example, I used to work with Fenris, whatever the fucking energy was that was Fenris the wolf. Whenever I would put that pin inside my thumb, I would do it very slowly to prolong the painful experience. That was an offering to Fenris, the pain as well as the blood. And I've done that with other entities.
For me, the pain is the chaos to feed demons. So I will use the blood for one thing, and the cutting for creating that sort of hysteria, so that the demons will be attracted to it. That's the purpose of it. I do a thing now where I use a hypodermic needle and cut in and pop into a vein that you can see, not a big one, but like a little vein, because you have stasis blood in there. I took a course in Chinese bloodletting, traditional Chinese bloodletting, so that I could really understand the process of how to get that blood out of your body. And when I do that, whatever has clouded me is gone. That blood is a particular density. It's a particular deadness already. It's almost like
cleansing.
Right.
It's
what?
It's like a form of cleansing.
Yeah, but it's almost like menstrual blood, because menstrual blood is delivered dead.
Mm-hmm.
So this is blood that's delivered dead. You want to bring demons into your experience. This sort of process, which I do teach, I'll teach it one-on-one, because it's not something you do, on Facebook, because people will hit the wrong artery, and then, you'll hear shit.
Yeah, exactly.
About that. I was a trade embalmer for 12 years. I know how not to hit the veins and which ones to hit. It's not
Please don't do this at home.
Yes.
Yeah, don't take it on yourself.
Yes,
you may
want
want
sorceress.
Yes.
Seek a little assistance with
Yes,
this,
please.
right?
It's not something that you should do by yourself. But what it does is it delivers a different kind of blood. If you cut yourself, you're getting a highly oxygenated life force. If you do this other thing, you're getting essentially dead blood or stasis blood. So blood sorcery has so many levels of the way that you can use it. But the injury is definitely, for me, a way to associate chaos, produce chaos for demons. Ken, do you ever use it that way?
Well, for me, most of the time, for me, whether working with Fenris, the wolf, or whether working with demons or whatever, the pain aspect is to get the attention, and then the blood is to make shit happen, baby.
Yeah, we're pretty much saying the same thing. I think we were separated at birth or something.
Yeah,
Oh, I knew that.
Or
Good.
Or some night in the club. I'm not really sure, but I'll take it however I can get it.
Let's go.
To wrap this back around to like our paranormal folk, like how does this apply to somebody who's like interested? Well, I know that the dead can haunt a house and that kind of stuff, and it's very interesting. I think it's easy for sorcery folk to say, well, kind of, I experience this every day, so it's not a big deal. But it's a very big deal if you're sitting there going through like 13 hours of data you've captured, and you're trying to say, all right, did I really communicate with something? Is there something going to move or whatever?
We should do one of these together. Don't you think so, Ken? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, I would love that.
And we could perhaps bring something that you can see in a clearer way, because what happens is they're already there. You're picking them up on your or the materials that you're using. They're already there. You might need one more conduit to step in to make them there, like you can see them right in front of you, because they're already there. I think that would be very useful.
I'd go so far to say they're always there to some degree.
Yeah, they're always there. They're in the room right now. They're here now. They're always here. How can they not be? There's more of them. There's more dead than living. I mean, that's the numbers. There's more people who have died than are people who have died.
I mean, that's not just a sorcerer or sorceress fact. That's just a fucking historical fact, right, baby?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm reading somebody was. Somebody just.
Let me put that back up.
It looked interesting.
Since in the BDSM community, blood plays one of the most decisive practices. The
Divisive.
people who are really into
Divisive,
it.
yes.
Divisive. Sorry, no glasses.
Okay.
The people who are often declared a hard limit. I always found that interesting.
Well,
Pushing
I
back.
Right.
everybody every like month of my life, there's at least 10 people who remind me that you're only supposed to use your blood for serious things. You can't
Mm.
use it for other reasons. And I say, well, I use my blood probably 4 or 5 times a week. I use it all the time. It is my practice. I don't have a signature like that for no reason. This is what I do. And no one has the right to tell me. And you go to a doctor, they draw blood, you ask them for another vial, they tell you you're crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that shit before. I used to work at a VA clinic. I did maintenance at a VA clinic back in the late 90s. And excuse me, I had a friend of mine who worked, she was a nurse, and I'm like, "Can you draw my blood?" "Well, why?" And I'm like, "I just need you to draw my blood, baby." So she did it, she did it anyway, but yeah, she thought I was crazy at first, but I need you to draw my blood, girl. So yeah.
You just have to have people in your circle who can do it for you. That's how it's set up for me. There's always somebody who can do it for me. I mean, I have certain ability to remove my own blood and take it out, but there should always be somebody around who knows how to do it. This is the way that we live. This is a part of the thing. Yeah, like Darren just popped up and he said because it's taboo. And a lot of the people who study with me came from other paths, if you like that word, where they were told these are the limitations and you can't do this and you can't do that. And then I say, then what the fuck are we doing any of this? I mean,
Yes, I blame that on organized religion, doctrine.
yeah, of course.
Yes.
Of course. Well, even people in other communities in this work, so I've heard this a lot from people who practice Wicca, that they say to me, I don't have the right to use, I should never use my blood. I should not ask other people to use their blood.
Yeah.
I should not teach this work. I also hear often that the problem with my work is that it works and that I teach it and it works and that ruins it for other authors. And I say, well, then you should put your books in the section that says fiction because there's plenty of room for that.
That's right.
I would never,
And I can attest to that. And well,
why would
absolutely.
you teach anything? What, Chris? I'm sorry.
I'm going to say that your work does work. And
it does.
That's why I've been trying to get you on for so long to talk about this, because I know for sure that, it is real. And like the readings and even other things aside of, different things on your website, if you do a reading with Sorceress, you're going to get a real reading and you're going to see the fruition of it happen, in real time.
Right.
Yeah.
It may take some time for it to happen, but it does.
Yeah. I can see as much distance as the person is willing to know about. That's pretty much how it works. And I don't use cards, and nothing against any of that. I don't use anything. I use what I call the nothing. And
we're all different. We're all different in our own ways.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people are very successful using devices. It's just not for me. For me, it gets in the way. I don't even want to see the person I'm reading. If it's in person, I ask them to turn away. I don't want any facial expressions. I don't want any clues. I don't want any hints. And I don't want them to say anything to me. I don't even want to know why they're there.
I can attest to this.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't want to know anything. You don't need to,
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need clues and I don't need to be tested. I mean, I've had people come to me asking to see their dead aunt, and I say to them, you don't have a dead aunt, and that happens a lot. But that's the nature of things. People are testing themselves. They're not testing me. They're not testing the work.
Right.
So as somebody involved in like paranormal investigations, it would seem the occultist that really has a very strong value, something that has not always been accepted. We see a little crossover with this idea of a medium and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But somebody is really into this and dedicated. They are already talking to the dead, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So many people are talking to the dead and they don't even know it.
Yep. I mean, somebody who doesn't even not believe, but to what we're talking about right now could say like, hey, I think I saw a shadow, or even if there's something there and their grandmother passed away, you know, they're like talking to them. They're talking to them. And that is a form of necromancy.
That's right. That is necromancy.
Of course it is.
Well, paranormal investigations in general is a type of necromancy. I mean, whenever you use a spirit box or whatever, that's a type of necromancy. You know, a lot of paranormal investigators, they won't admit it. They shy away from it, or they get pissed off if you bring it up. But anytime you try to facilitate communication with the dead is a type of necromancy.
That is really the definition of necromancy.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definition.
That's the whole thing.
I still have to say this. You taught him very well because he taught me. So
oh, good. Oh,
yes.
Good. Yeah, that's great. You guys should come visit me. You should absolutely come visit me.
I would love to.
You have to because you live near Ann, our friend Anne Marie Young. So we need to go to what is it? Gettysburg,
Pennsylvania, Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Work our way to Florida.
See my mom, and then see Ken.
Yeah,
No,
I'm in North Florida. I'm in Tallahassee, so y'all bitches got to come and see me now.
We have a road trip.
We have a wicked road trip to go.
We're gonna put it together.
Oh, and where's our shirts?
You gotta hang out.
That's a big road trip, but you will certainly get a lot out of it.
Oh yes, most definitely. That's what we're looking for. Yeah,
yeah,
we need it.
We're gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
I hope this has been informative to people that are maybe new
our
to
audience. Yeah,
paranormal stuff and investigating, and our show, Bigfoot and the Bunny, really encompasses a lot of topics. One of the things I wanted to get into was the idea that maybe these gods, goddesses, demons, whatever we want to call them, these energies, maybe what we call aliens and that sort of thing.
Yes.
There are a lot of parallels, and what is beautiful about the show, besides being a platform for people to come out and speak their truths and what their experiences are, is that it's wide. It's very wide. There are a lot of things we know. There are a lot of things we don't know.
You didn't even talk about the Bridgewater Triangle yet, but yeah.
That's right. I wanted to bring up the Bridgewater Triangle and your book here, 29.
Yes, that's the boy from the Hockomock Swamp. Yes.
Yes, the Hockomock Swamp.
We're actually doing a technology version of that. I'm working with one of my students, Vito, who's amazing. And we've created an app for the new book so that you can hold the sigils on your phone and utilize them on the phone and then take screenshots of what you've done with them, and they're like talismanic. And the one after that, the one he's working on now, is an app for the boy, for people who want to use it that way, where he comes through the fog and he interacts with the sigils that he gave me in the Hockomock Swamp. So that's a huge, because technology, I just want to mention it. Technology is just sitting there waiting for people like us who practice this work to use it. It's just fucking sitting there.
And I wanted to go there. People like Peter Carroll with Chaos Magic have pushed stuff a little bit, a while ago, and then it seemed to kind of die off. And I feel like, in particular, your sorcery is kind of a pathwork that works with technology, that also works with kind of the old school stuff as well, and kind of puts it all together in something that is usable today.
Yeah, I want people to be able to carry this work in their pocket and have it anywhere that they want to use it, because there are no rules. And I've gotten a lot of crap about it. I don't care about any of that, though. People say, "Oh, you're trying to make games out of your work." Well, maybe my work is games, and games are wonderful, and playing is wonderful. And if that's the way that you can access the power of a sigil, then why the fuck not? I mean, what's the problem?
Damn right. Damn
right. 100 years ago, somebody would have had to give it to you drawn on a rock, and you have to carry it around.
Okay.
Then somebody said, let's do books, and somebody said, let's do film. I'm doing stop animation right now, stop motion animation.
Come on.
I am. I've got. Somebody said to me, you should have a TikTok, so I opened a TikTok, and in one night, I got 1,200 views of my stop motion little animations, because I have this set of necromancy dolls. There's 8 of them. I've made them. They're very tiny, but I've got them moving together and tying their hair together and doing all these things that engage you in understanding the interaction between things you've never seen move before.
Like binding?
Yes, all that kind of stuff.
Isn't
Girl,
that-
you're gonna make me want to touch myself. Keep talking, Cagliastro. Keep
If
talking.
I make you want to touch yourself, then I've been successful tonight. I want to make everyone touch themselves all the time and touch others. It's
Can
very
she
Yes.
break into the song? A touch
Yes.
myself.
Remember that song.
Touch
I love that.
myself.
I love that song. Yeah, when the apps are all ready, I'll send all of you like guest links so you can experiment with them because it's what we should be doing. I mean, it's so ridiculous to me that all that is out there, and those of us who practice sorcery or whatever you want to call it are not tapping into that. It's insanity to me. This is like
Absolutely.
We
the
believe that
ultimate
too.
threat. It's
Yes.
just so
Epic.
important.
You're epic.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Cagliastro, you're epic. You're fucking amazing.
I do what I
Listen,
can.
when we get off here, get my number from Chris
Yeah,
because I do want to keep in contact with you.
100%. I
I'll
would
put you
love
guys
that.
together.
I would
No,
love
no
that.
problem at all.
And our friend Anne-Marie Young also will like your number and your info and stuff. And she's
I would love to have
I'm sure a lot of people
continued
do.
conversation with you, Ken.
And again,
would
the
love
website is www.cagliastro.com.
That's right. You
That's
got
where
it.
to find you, Sorceress. Ken,
Yes.
where can people find you? And
Oh, I'm not a big deal. Just
I think you are,
you
but
can
that's
find me. You can find me on Facebook as Ken Allen. Look for the black and white picture of me sitting in the fucking swamps of North Florida, baby.
right
You know
on.
what, Ken? You know it would be great. I just want to put this out there. If we did an app together that used the wolf energy.
Yes.
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 I would love to do that with you. I'm sure my
Let's talk
developer
about it.
and do it with you. It'd be great. It'd be great. Because I've never met you before, but I'm like completely in love with you. And
I'm feeling the same thing.
it's just powerful. You're a powerful man, and you know what you are? You have that thing I love. The thing I always say about myself is you're not full of shit. And I love people who are not full of shit. I'm like so excited to have met you. It's wonderful.
Same here. I just wish I could hug you and smell your hair.
Well, we can arrange that.
We can make that happen.
Oh yeah.
We can make that happen. We can all smell
Road
each
trip.
other's hair.
We're all going on road trip. We can all smell each
Sounds
other's hair.
good.
That's right. Why not? You can come. You can come. You can enjoy my cigars. It'll be lovely.
I love cigars.
Yeah, it'll be lovely.
All right, let's do it, baby.
We
Do
love
it.
putting the two of you together
Yes,
because
we
we
did.
knew this would be like some really great energy out there
Yep.
to everyone and help everybody like kind of understand that there is more to life than we know. You know, you set boundaries, you break those fucking boundaries. We can do more. You can have the life you want to have. You
That's
just need to make an effort, you know, and if that effort is as simple as contacting Sorceress Cagliastro, contacting Ken, just fucking reading a book, then do it. You know, just do it. You know, there is more here. We can personally attest to it.
We have
And-
a pile of books on right here in front of
Oh
us.
yeah, I've
So-
got
Yeah,
a lot. You know,
I make a lot of money for Amazon because I have 47 books on Amazon. I make a lot of money for them. They're
My
very nice.
goodness.
to me.
I bet. You're
that's
awesome.
for them, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for them. Yeah, it's okay.
Come
That's
We
a
know
fact.
there's not like a ton of money in buying a book and that kind of
Well,
stuff, but
I
you know, you
self-publish
want to put that
really
information
good.
out there and help people and do
Yes,
his thing.
definitely.
And
Please,
I know
yes.
you both pretty well, and I know you really your intentions are definitely good at the end of the day.
Yes.
You are trying to help people, and again, as I said in front of the show, people that are involved in sorcery and magic and all these sort of things are usually working on some level of self-improvement or understanding how things fucking work.
That's
Because
right.
we don't
Yeah.
absolutely know,
We
right?
don't know for
Science
sure.
hasn't caught up yet.
Nope.
But we've been doing it for a long time.
Mhm.
Civilization.
Yo, that's Chris and I have a big thing about this.
That's right. That's right.
More is more.
This has been wonderful.
Yeah.
We love you guys. We
So
love
much.
everybody who joined us tonight. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
This has been a great show.
Stick around for 1 second,
Yep, hang out. We'll talk. And this has been great.
please.
So
Thank you.
enjoy your holiday.
Thanks, Fred.
Remember
Thanks,
to
Sam.
respect the dead on November 1st.
Right?
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you.
Absolutely.